Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. We're going to be talking all about the books that I read in 2023, which I'm super excited about because I have a good mix of really good ones, really bad ones, and like mediocre ones. If you're interested to know the full list of my favorite books of 2023, then go ahead and check out the video that I recently made all about that. But for today, we're just going to go over all of the books. I read a total of 35 books this year, and so I'm going to try to not go into a lot of detail or this video is going to be way too long. I'll just give you like a general gist and how I felt about it, and then I guess maybe if I think you should read it or not. So yeah, before we get started, I also want to share with you guys that I recently made a Bookstagram account, which I'm super excited for and kind of nervous at the same time, just because I don't know anything about Instagram. YouTube is my safe space, it's my comfort zone, and I know how it works, but with Instagram, I have no idea what I'm doing, how I want to present there, so I'm still trying to figure it out. But I would love for you to follow me and we can talk in real time, which is mainly why I wanted to start it and be able to like make stories and chit chat about books and all that. So if you're interested, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. It's at Amina's Library, and also I made a Goodreads account if you want to follow me there. I'm trying to do all the book girly things this year, so the links will be in the description. But let's go ahead and start talking about the books I read. Okay, so the first book I read this year was Verity. It is by Colleen Hoover, and it is about a girl named Verity. She writes this very popular series, but she gets into this accident where she's no longer able to continue writing her books. So her husband Jeremy hires this writer named Lowen to kind of be like a ghostwriter and write the rest of the series for Verity and her readers. And so Lowen agrees. She goes to Verity and Jeremy's house trying to look for the notes that Verity has for the series, but she stumbles upon an unpublished autobiography that highlights what happened when Verity and Jeremy's daughter passed away. So Lowen isn't sure if she should tell Jeremy what she found, and Lowen starts getting feelings for Jeremy. So it's just a mess, honestly, but I loved it. This was the first like romantic thriller that I read, and I was kind of nervous about it because my heart was pounding when I was reading this book. It was very good and juicy, so I really liked it and I would recommend this one. And then after this one, I was like, hey, I want to see what other books Colleen has written, so then I went ahead and I got Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This one is... honestly, I had to read the back of the book because it's been so long. But there's this girl named Tate, and she gets into like this situationship with this guy named Miles. And Miles tells her straight up from the jump, don't ask about the past and don't expect a future. And she's kind of like, okay. And she just is trying to have fun with him. But then of course she gets feelings, and he has a really dark past that he's not willing to talk about or work through, but she wants more. So we kind of figure out that relationship. I didn't really enjoy this book. Honestly, it's like an average 3 stars or something. Like, I forgot about it. I really liked Verity, so I picked up this book. But this was the last Colleen Hoover book I read, and I started to notice like a pattern in her writing and the story, so it felt a little bit predictable to me. So it's like an okay book. I don't know, forgettable, I guess. Then I read People We Meet on Vacation. This book, y'all, oof. Let me just tell you what it's about. Okay, so these two friends, Alex and Poppy, and they always spent summer vacations together every year, except one summer something happened and they stopped being friends, and so they don't talk for like 2 years. And Poppy is like, okay, I want to go on one last vacation together and maybe try to, I don't know, fix whatever happened when they stopped being friends. So throughout the book, we go through all the vacations they've been on, and we eventually find out the reason why they stopped being friends. And y'all, I hated this book. This book was not for me at all, guys. Like, when I tell you I was so bored throughout the whole book because we kept going back and forth between the summers and the present, and I was just like, what is going on? I just did not like it at all. It was just not a book for me. When we find out why they stopped being friends, it was so ridiculous. It was so stupid and childish. These people are 30 years old and they act like children. Especially Poppy, she was so annoying to me. There's this aspect of like her getting bullied in high school or middle school or whatever, and like she did not like her small town. And the way, like, okay, everyone has valid feelings or whatever, but this girl's 30 years old and she's still out here thinking about her middle school bullies and how, like, I'm sorry, she's fake, so I'm gonna invalidate it. I'm like, girl, grow up. Grow up. I did not like this book do not recommend, I'm sorry. But the next book I do. It was Archer's Voice, which I absolutely love. This was my favorite book I read all year, and it's about a girl who moves to a small town, and there's this guy who looks very rugged and is very mysterious. He doesn't speak, and nobody in the town knows what happened and why he doesn't speak. And the girl, her name is Bree, and the guy, his name's Archer, and they start this friendship, and it's just so beautiful. And honestly, I can talk about it forever. I bought this book for my friend on her birthday, and she also really loved it. Like, this is a really good book, guys, and if you take any recommendation from me, read this book. It broke my heart and sewed it back together, and I am so freaking in love with this book. It's ridiculous. Yeah, don't want to talk too much about it because I feel like if you're not new here, you know. Then I read the Dreamland Billionaire series. It is a series revolving around 3 brothers and how they get their percentage of their grandfather's inheritance. So the grandfather died, and we follow each brother and how they get, I think it's like $25 billion or something like that. It is honestly my favorite like contemporary romance series I read all year. It has Grumpy Sunshine in it. It has Marriage of Convenience. It has Billionaires. It has honestly everything, and my favorite one from this series was Terms and Conditions. I absolutely love this one. Then I would say Fine Print, and then The Final Offer. This one had second chance romance in it, which I'm not a huge fan of, so that's why it's like lower on the list. But overall, I love this whole series, and I'm really excited to read more of Lauren Asher this year. Then I read Scarred, which is part of the Never After series, where pretty much it's a reimagining of old fairy tales. And so this one is a Lion King reimagining. It's a dark romance, so there's a lot of like crazy stuff that happens in this book, similar to the Lion King where Scar wants to kill Mufasa and take over the throne and all that stuff. It's the same story here. 2 brothers, one of them wants to take over and be king, and we follow that story, but with the twist because we're kind of rooting for the villain in these stories. So I really like this one. I've read 3. We'll talk about the other 2 in a bit, but this was definitely my favorite out of all of those. Then I read The Vicious Lost Boys, which is a series that I read on my Kindle. This was the first book that I read on my Kindle because it was just recommended, and I was like, okay, let's see what it's about. This series is like a Peter Pan retelling where Peter Pan lost his shadow, and he has been for generations coming to Wendy Darling's like descendants, and on their 18th birthday kidnapping them and taking them to Neverland, get into their mind to find out where the shadow is. It was a really crazy story. Honestly, I did not like it. It was not a good one. I don't know why I kept reading it. I feel like it's because there's 4 books, but honestly it could have just been chunked into one. I feel like there was just more books for the heck of it, and I just wanted to know how the heck this was gonna end. I feel like most people only want to read it for the spice, and if that's you, then go for it, but like I need some plot or something, and I feel like everyone here was just a bunch of idiots in these books, so it wasn't my favorite, gotta be honest. Then after that I read the Twisted series, which is a total of 4 books. It revolves around best friends and how they find love, and there's a lot of twisted things, I guess, that go on. The first one is called Twisted Love. It's a Grumpy Sunshine trope, billionaire. There's my brother's best friend, Touch Her and You're Dead, like all the good things. I really felt like this was gonna be my book, and I did enjoy it, but I felt like it kind of ended weirdly a little bit. There was a twist I was like not expecting in this book, which is cool. But yeah, it's like a nice read. Like, I wouldn't say this is amazing, but it's not terrible, and I liked it. Then Twisted Games. This is about another friend, but she's a princess. Her brother was supposed to become king, but he decided to like marry someone who wasn't royal or something like that. I can't remember. So she ends up having to become queen, and so she also has this bodyguard who is very strict and does not mess around with her safety. And again, another Grumpy Sunshine thing, Touch Her and You're Dead. I don't think I like this one as much as the first one, which is weird because I thought I would love this one. I felt like the slow burn was way too slow, and it made it boring to read, honestly. Like, I like slow burns, but I feel like when they take way too long, I want to set myself on fire. I need like little tiny things here and there, and I felt like I didn't get enough like crumbs, if you know what I mean.
Really quickly, I'm editing and I just remembered that in the book, the bodyguard, his name is Rise or Reese. I don't know. It's spelled like this. And I, in the review, said it was Rise, but I recently heard that people called him Reese, and I have never seen a spelling of Reese like that before. So let me know, because your girl has no clue.
So the sun's kind of getting in my face, but don't mind it. We're gonna just keep going. The next one was Twisted Hate, which was honestly one that I thought I was gonna hate. because it follows Josh and Jules, and we learned about them in the previous 2 books, and they kind of annoyed me just a little bit. But surprisingly, this ended up being my favorite out of the entire series. It's an enemies to lovers, best friend's brother. I just really enjoyed it. And then we have Twisted Lies, which I thought I was gonna eat up because it's, again, a billionaire trope. It has fake dating in it. I think it's Grumpy Sunshine 2, I can't remember. I thought I was gonna love it the most, but I actually ended up not liking it very much just because it was so long, and I felt like Christian, who's the love interest, he was just kind of a stalker. Like, I don't know, there was a lot of things about him that wasn't like speaking to me the way I wanted it to. So out of all these, I'm so surprised about what ended up being my favorite and least favorite. But yeah, overall, I really recommend the series. It is a nice read, nothing amazing, nothing terrible, but yeah. Then I also ended up reading Magnolia Parks on my Kindle. When I went into this book, I thought I was going to love it because it seemed like there was a lot of drama and toxicity, which I was in the mood to read, but it just ended up being like really annoying to me. I don't know, like I felt like the plot wasn't plotting for me. Like Magnolia's annoying, BJ's annoying. It's like a situationship type thing. They were together and now they're in this weird spot, and we try to find out why they're not together anymore, and eventually we do, which is kind of predictable to me. And it is toxic, which is okay to me. Like, I can justify toxicity, but like some of these things, I'm like, I don't get the hype. Like, the writing was amazing. I really liked it. The only thing I didn't like about it was how descriptive the clothing was, but it matched Magnolia's personality. Like, when she's talking, she cares about fashion and all that stuff, so it made sense. But like, I just didn't understand the hype, honestly. Daisy Hates is the next book in the series, and I don't know if I'll read it. If someone can please explain to me why you like Magnolia Parks, let me know, because I just don't get it. Then again, on my Kindle, I read Birthday Girl, which again, I don't get it. It's about this girl. She meets this guy and they end up having like a connection or whatever, but she has a boyfriend, so it's not gonna happen. And her boyfriend no longer can live where they're living, so they end up moving in with her boyfriend's dad, but the boyfriend's dad ended up being the guy that she had that connection with. So we follow this weird situation where it's the girl and his dad getting kind of feelings for each other, and it's very messy and annoying, honestly. Like, he's an older guy, he's like in his late 30s, I think, and she's 19, and I felt like the whole book she was just trying to prove like her mind is older than she is. And I don't know, I read Birthday Girl after Magnolia Parks because Magnolia Parks wasn't giving me the toxicity I needed, so then I read Birthday Girl and it was just kind of annoying. Then after Birthday Girl, I read Hooked, and Hooked was the first book in the Never After series, and I actually enjoyed it. It's a Peter Pan reimagining, so we're gonna end up rooting for Hook in this story. I didn't like it as much as Scarred, but overall, not too bad. And then I went over and read Wretched, which was a Wizard of Oz reimagining, and I didn't really like this book, honestly. I felt like I was starting to get a pattern with the Never After series, and just in the order that I read it, from the second book to the first book to the third book, it just kind of got worse for me. I don't know. And that was the last book I read from the Never After series so far. I do want to read the next few books that are out, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But Wretched just wasn't for me. It was gruesome and people were like hyping it up in ways that I just didn't get. Yeah, overall, I don't think I would recommend Wretched. I wouldn't also recommend Birthday Girl or Magnolia Parks. Hot take, I don't know. Then I read Sweetest Oblivion. I also read that on my Kindle. I was on a Kindle kick, and this was like a mafia romance, which honestly I really liked. It was about a girl named what is her name? Elena, I think. I can't remember her name. Shoot. I think it's Elena. And Nico, they have like this thing going on, but Nico is engaged to Elena. I hope her name's Elena. Elena's sister. So it's like a weird thing going on. He's also a billionaire. There's Touch Your Dad. There's a lot of tension, and I did enjoy it. So I don't think I'm gonna move on to the rest of the series though, but I did like this one. Then we have the Shatter Me series. I talked so much about this book, but it's a dystopian YA series. I really enjoyed it. It is about a girl who has this power where if you touch her skin, it can become fatal for you, and it's in this society where you don't have any rights or freedoms of any kind, and she gets locked up in this asylum in the beginning of the book, and we follow her getting out of there, and there's a love triangle, and it was just really entertaining, honestly. There was a lot that I liked about this series, and there's 6 physical books and then 5 novellas. So I ran through these books. I really enjoyed it so much. So highly recommend it. And then I read The Wish Collector on my Kindle. This one was recommended to me by a viewer, and it was because it was written by the same author as Archer's Voice, Mia Sheridan, and I love that book, so I wanted to see what else she had. And honestly, I don't think Wish Collector was really for me. It had similar vibes as Archer's Voice, but I don't know, it didn't hit the same, because this one is about a girl who moves to New Orleans and she hears stories of this wall that grants wishes, and so she goes to visit it, and there's a man on the other side of the wall and he never shows his face, and so they become friends through the wall without seeing each other, and we kind of follow that story. And there's also a second plot around this mystery behind the wall, and it goes back to slave owning times and a love story between a slave and a white man and all that. There was a lot of different elements to it. I thought it was a really good book, but it was just really sad for me, and like I don't think I would be necessarily the target audience for it, but once I read it I was like, this is really like a good book. But I think it's really important to know what kind of stories you enjoy reading, and also when you're in the mood for it, because it was really depressing for me. So yeah. Then next I read was Credence, and this book was this book was about a girl. Her parents die. She moves to live with her dad's stepbrother and ends up getting in a weird relationship between him and his sons, and it was just ridiculous. I made a reading vlog if you want to know more in detail, but honestly there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened in this book that are not okay. Manipulative, grooming, toxic stuff. So yeah, definitely wouldn't recommend this book unless you're into that. I don't know. The last book that I read this year was called Severed by Vengeance. I actually just finished it. It's like another mafia dark romance type book, and it's about this girl named Eva and guy named Derek. Derek went into the foster care system as a young age and grew up in a really rough environment, and his biological dad like completely neglected him. But Ava ended up actually having a really close relationship with Derek's biological dad because he was her godfather. And so Derek and Ava never met or anything, but Derek's father ends up dying, and we find out how very early on, and Ava is so sad about it or whatever, and she finds out that her godfather had a son who was Derek, and so she goes off to find him and they start this friendship and more. And Derek keeps a lot of secrets from her, and she's a detective, so his world and her world just don't mix. Honestly, I did not really like it. It's maybe like a 2 stars for me, just because like Derek is a stalker. Like he stalks Ava, and he's not a really good person, which, you know, I love a morally gray character. I live for that. But I feel like with writing dark romances and morally gray characters, it's like an art form, and like you gotta want to root for evil people and see where they're coming from. For a lot of the things that happen, I couldn't really justify things, and when Ava like found out some certain things, the way that she went about it also was weird to me. Like the ending was weird. Everything is kind of weird to me, gotta be honest. Don't know if I would recommend it. Actually, I don't think I would recommend it, but this was the author's first novel ever, so I feel like she did a good job for her first novel ever. You know what I mean? I don't want to like beat down on it, but yeah, I don't think it was really my cup of tea. I'm gonna try my best to get some of these books on Goodreads, so if you want to see a more in-depth review of these, then you can go ahead and do that, or just follow me on my Bookstagram, because I'm sure I will talk about them as well over there. But overall, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was not too long. I really tried to breeze through as fast as I could, but super excited for 2024 and the books that we can read this year. So anyways, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.